1965. The racing world already had a king, and his name was Carroll Shelby. His machines weren't just winning, they were dominating. Track after track, race after race, Shelby's cars didn't compete, they erased the competition. The SCCA grid had become predictable. If Shelby showed up, everyone else was fighting for second place. The rulebook seemed written in his favor. The industry backed him, the crowd expected him, and no one, absolutely no one, looked capable of changing that. But far from the spotlight, in a quiet dealership in Pennsylvania, a different kind of idea was taking shape. It didn't come from a factory, it didn't come from a massive budget, and it definitely didn't come from a V8. It came from a car that most people had already given up on, a car that had been publicly criticized, mocked, and nearly buried by its own reputation. The Chevrolet Corvair. To many, it was a mistake, a dangerous experiment, a car that didn't belong on American roads, let alone a racetrack. But Don Yenko didn't see failure. He saw potential. Where others saw flaws, he saw opportunity. Because beneath all the controversy, the Corvair was hiding something special. Something most people never bothered to understand. A completely different layout, a rear-mounted engine, independent suspension, a balance that felt unfamiliar, but powerful. When the second-generation Corvair arrived in 1965, everything changed. Needed fixing. Refined what needed refining. And what remained was a chassis that behaved like nothing else in America. It was responsive, predictable, alive. Not like the heavy muscle cars dominating the roads. This felt closer to something European, something precise, something built for corners, not just straight lines. And the moment Yenko drove it, he knew. This wasn't just a misunderstood car. This was a weapon. But turning that idea into reality would require something far more difficult than vision. It would require commitment. Because racing rules didn't care about potential. They cared about numbers. To even qualify for competition, Yenko needed to build at least 100 cars. Not prototypes, not concepts, real cars, sold cars, documented cars. For a small operation, that wasn't just a challenge, it was a risk, a massive one. But Yenko didn't hesitate. He chose the Corvair Corsa as his foundation, not because it was popular, but because it had the right bones. He stripped away everything unnecessary. Weight had no place here. Comfort had no place here. Only performance mattered. The interior became focused, minimal, purpose-built. And then came the identity. White paint, blue stripes, not for style, but for function. White revealed everything. Heat, oil, damage. On a racetrack, that visibility could save a race, or even a life. This wasn't decoration. This was strategy. And then came the details. The ones that separated a modified car from a true race machine. A carefully designed rear spoiler. Not for looks, but to control airflow. To keep the rear planted at speed. To give drivers confidence where it mattered most. Cooling vents engineered into the body, because an air-cooled engine under racing conditions doesn't forgive mistakes. Every component, every decision, connected to a single goal: control. But the real transformation was still ahead, because what Yenko was about to change next would completely redefine how this car behaved on the track. And it would turn a forgotten machine into something Shelby couldn't ignore. The real breakthrough began with the suspension, because speed means nothing if you can't control it. The stock setup was decent for the road, but racing demands something else entirely. Precision, stability, confidence at the limit. Yenko rebuilt the system from the ground up. New springs, retuned dampers, balanced geometry. The transformation was immediate. The car stopped feeling uncertain and started feeling predictable. Drivers didn't fight it anymore. They trusted it, and trust, on a racetrack, is everything. Then came braking. Because going fast is easy, stopping fast, that's where races are won or lost. The original system wasn't enough, so Yenko upgraded it with stronger components. Consistent pressure, better heat resistance, lap after lap, corner after corner. The brakes held firm. No fade, no hesitation, just control. And then, the final piece of the puzzle. Traction, a limited slip differential. Instead of wasting power through one spinning wheel, both rear wheels worked together, pushing, gripping, launching the car out of corners with force, and suddenly, everything clicked. The balance, the grip, the control. It all came together. But Yenko didn't stop there. He understood something most builders missed. Not every driver needed the same car. So he created multiple performance levels, each one carefully engineered, each one purposeful. From entry-level race builds to full competition machines, power increased, components strengthened, engines pushed further, until the car became something entirely different. Not just competitive, but dangerous to its rivals. And when it finally hit the track, the results spoke louder than any theory ever could. It didn't dominate like Shelby's cars, but that wasn't the point. It shocked people. It proved something, that a car everyone had dismissed could fight back, could win, could stand on the same track and refuse to be ignored. Because this wasn't just about speed, it was about intelligence. The Corvair didn't overpower its competition, it outmaneuvered it, through corners, through balance, through precision. And for the first time, Shelby had something to think about. But just as momentum began to build, everything changed. A new car arrived, the Camaro. And with it, the industry shifted. Attention moved, resources disappeared, and just like that, the project began to fade. Not because it failed, but because the world moved on. By the end of the decade, it was over. Only a small number of these machines existed, built with vision, driven with purpose, and remembered by those who understood what they truly were. Today, they're not just rare, they're respected, because they represent something bigger than racing. They represent an idea, that greatness doesn't always come from power. Sometimes, it comes from seeing what others refuse to see, and having the courage to build it anyway.